Hi, folks. Nick Tucker here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into things, let me pay a few bills. First and foremost, we are made possible with the generous support of our good friends over at IndieCD, the Independent Creator Directory, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, musicians, and other creatives. If you wish to join their ranks for the low cost of $40, you can have a place where you will be hosted, where people can find your works easily, and it's taken care of. You'll be part of a community. It's a wonderful program. Please consider going there. And if you want, the first 100 people get in half off for podcast one. So that means lifetime fee being hosted on a site for $20. That's a great deal. All right. We're also made possible by sales of the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear. All part of my ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled the sword to being able to teach it to others and exploring other wonderful Western martial arts traditions. There are more in the works. I am, however, working through my list of things that are coming due to me. So that basically pays the bills, except for the best and the most important. There is a humble Patreon, and let me see if that link got moved over. It did not, but I can find it. Patreon.com/The Historical Fencing Guild, where you can, for as little as $1 a month, help me keep the lights on, buy gear to train people, fight the fact that I must always rebuild my list field. And the people who have done this, why I can hold gear up and do things, are listed below. And I'm going to change some of this, but Off in the Woods, Frog G, That's Bladed Thesis, Ronald Rain, Brian K. Moore, Cindy Kep, and my OG, Steve Augusto. Those folks have helped me keep the lights on for several years now, and I am eternally into your debt because of you, I can do things quietly, like provide gear to people who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it, not have to charge the library for some of the programs that I do, things like that. Because this is part of my LLC projects, the White Boot Arms and Artistry. I can't go full charity with it for legal reasons, but someday I hope to, when I have the proper facilities to make it worthwhile. It's very difficult. However, the Historical Fencing Guild has, in one form or another, for the last 20 plus years, substantially 20 plus years. I mean, we're looking, we've been doing this for almost a quarter of a decade. Yeah. We've been providing free personal training to people who, for economic reasons, could not afford to get it there. People who have endured traumas, they have physical limitations, or other difficulties that would make standard training rather difficult. It's been my pleasure to, I lost count how many students I've had, but they are in the hundreds, and I'm proud. And the vast majority then go on to whatever groups I'm freelance visiting, because I travel around between, I used to do a lot with the SCA, I no longer do, but I still work with some of the SCA people, AmpGuard, Canorac, a bunch of other groups like that, where we can have what we have here, which is an open discussion. People can compare styles. They can work to make themselves a bit better. And that's what I'm all about. I will admit, I got slowed down for the last few years as I had some severe conditions manifest, and the recovery has been a long and slow process. However, each year back up, I am a little better, closer to where I want to be. And part of that is the first bit of news I want to discuss before we get into the chat, that next Saturday, so in 1 week, we will be at the Twin Oaks Park in New Chicago, providing opening entertainment for the Gary Shakespeare Company's inaugural for the season performance of a comedy of errors. So we will be out doing sparring, answering questions, engaging in shenanigans, and hopefully, by all things, it should be reasonable weather and not 100 degrees with 100% humidity death trap that it was last year. Great fun, but a lot of work. So I'm looking forward to, once I get through some of the things going on this weekend, actually going on tonight and tomorrow, I'm going to just spend the week getting the gear together, last minute prep. I've been doing a lot of buildup that's kind of consumed a lot of the time I normally put towards projects for this, as well as some of the stuff I'm doing for other projects that I've been requested to, because I'm a sucker. When a kid tells me, hey, I love Nerf, but I don't know how to do it, as in how Nerf guns are fired or whatever, that strikes a fire in my black little heart. And I'm like, I can help you with this because you are under 18 and I can't teach you to sword fight right now. But we can start with Nerf. And because of that, it's been kind of a privilege, and helping people will always almost overshadow anything I'm doing. It's who I am and what I do. But as a quick reminder, if you go to Purple Heart Armory, I do have the affiliate link. Please go through my link if you buy anything. I like supporting Purple Heart Armory, not just because they gave me an affiliate link, which honestly I don't make much money, if anything, from, but it tracks how many people come through that link, lets them know that if I say maybe you should consider making this kind of sword, or people really like this, or I've heard you might want to get some more of this in stock. It gives me a little more weight to my requests, which means I can help people get the gear and weapons that they want to train with. And because it's a smaller company that has low-cost options relative to the field, it's an alternative to the Chinese-made polypropylene gear that you usually get from Amazon, which I am not bashing. It is just a little bit of my patriotic pride that I try to support governments. Now, there are times where you need something that is only available through China, and we are going right into one of those. Not many people know this, but at the time when we were in the SCA and a couple of other organizations, when somebody crossed a trial, a authorization bout, or something similar, they were usually gifted with something, a sword or sword-adjacent piece, depending on what I had access to. And it's been a tradition, kind of, with the Historical Fencing Guild that came back when I was, ties all the way back to an SCA household I used to associate with. They don't exist anymore, but the tradition was, if possible, to give someone a sword. Now, one of our own, someone very dear to the people here, and I haven't checked the chat as usual, because I've never checked the chat until you guys can see me, because you guys enjoy my reactions. And I'm not off-brand. I have my Hawaiian shirt. It's just rather warm in here. But our own Cindy Kep went out, and she did everything for that martial arts competition. She made an excellent showing. However, I seem to recall that Cindy wasn't allowed to have a sword that swords. And this bothered me profoundly, that is, being that Cindy couldn't have a sword that swords, but Cindy has earned a sword. How do I work around this? So being me, and I admit it now because I've watched the receipt go through, and the fact that because of some other dealings, I happen to have Cindy's address, and she is one of both my esteemed patrons and definitely considered part of the guild. I sent her a collapsible Tai Chi practice sword. One, I was going to show it, but my stuff is buried. I have one just like it. You guys, I've reviewed it on the show. I wouldn't use it for contact, but as a Tai Chi SSO, it's a beautiful item. And because it collapsed, it should be, in fact, a sword that does not sword, so shouldn't have gotten her in trouble with her roommates. But as I didn't want to get in trouble with Cindy, I wasn't going to say anything about me doing it until such time as I saw her talk about, mention it, and not be cranky. Because had she been cranky, I simply would have said nothing. Because I am, of course, a coward when it comes to doing nice things for my friends and getting caught. However, mysteries will eat at anybody's mind, and I wanted to show in some small token way with the resources I have right now, uh, my appreciation for everything she does, not just for me, but for everybody. She promotes constantly. She has shown the videos of her training. She's dedicated to improving herself at a rational, real pace, at a real art, and it's something I highly, highly respect. I am far more impressed with input than I am output, especially in something like martial arts competitions. And a lot of that comes from my more jaded experiences with the SCA, where I fought people who simply would not accept blows. So there were times where it was physically impossible to win a tournament if your honorable opponent isn't honorable. But I'm glad for that, in that it kept me of the mentality of looking at how much effort people put in. Because when you're strong and healthy and you have good money and you have not a lot on your plate, helping people is very easy. And it's something I encourage anyone who's in a good position to do whenever they can. When you're tight or you're physically limited or your situation is not that, or many other things, it can be painfully hard. And we have to realize, especially as I work with a lot of people who have physical limitations, the amount of effort it takes somebody who is fighting a physical disability to do and succeed in certain things is frankly light years beyond what it would be for somebody who didn't have physical disabilities to do the same thing. As likewise people who have emotional or mental problems. And we must never try to set ourselves as a baseline norm, because it all blurs for everybody. So I'm all about not just helping you guys through the books, through the videos, through chats like this where I can answer questions. I think it's important to build up people when I have the opportunity who are putting in the hours, who are taking and what they're doing with what they have. I mean, Cindy takes what she learns and she puts it out there and she explains it, and she puts it out in a way on her channel, which you should be subscribed to her channel. She puts things out in a way that people can learn from it and she does it without hubris, and she does it without an ounce of greed. And I respect all of these things highly, much like I respect Trelana Bachman, who right now is in the green room having a blast. She has earned it, but Trelana and Joe are the same way. Many of the people on that aspect of my life are that same way. I'm privileged to be among them. So Cindy, and this is literally from all of us, because I talked to Amanda about it, and etc. We are so proud of you. We are so proud of everything you did, and so impressed with going literally that far and going that far in competition and being eager to set up the next step that we wanted to do something. So, as tokenish as that might be, I hope it is something that can serve you a little bit without getting you in trouble. It was kind of a narrow passage to sail through. And if it did or causes you any problems, I humbly apologize. But I could not let your efforts be unrecognized in a tangible fashion. I just couldn't do it. It's too important. I am one who despises systems where the awards get political. That's why I don't do that. There are either people who aren't able to teach in the guild and people who are able to teach. And then there's Trelana, my drop dead. Literally, if I got hit by a seed truck, I know Trelana Bachman could teach the simple sword through her lens, and understand the meaning of my mission and make sure it's provided to very good people, because she does that with my blessing in certain places when work allows. I've been contacted by a few people, and some of them may be in the chat, some of them may be the eyeball people watching, that they are concerned about current events, concerned about smaller scale current events, their health, the world, etc. And I wanted to address that because I've had enough people reach out to me that I thought, getting into this part of the video, it is very difficult because there's a lot of things that happen that are beyond our control. There's nothing we can do about that. And it can be scary. And I respect that. But what we can do, regardless of the things outside of our control, everything works in concentric circles. It's just like fighting a melee, guys. You make a circle that radiates out from you, step, and you start with how you're thinking and how you're feeling. You have to breathe. The breathing is the rhythm that sort of puts out the beats that lets you feel the other circles. That's your sort of sensory sonar, You can't think if you stop breathing. Or you're breathing too fast. Your body won't. You have to breathe. And then you have to look at how you're thinking, how you're feeling, and admit it, feel it, but keep going. Express it safely in a controlled fashion and keep going. If you're scared, you're allowed to be scared. If you're angry, you're allowed to be angry. If you're excited, you're allowed to be excited. But you can't let any of that control you, because if it's controlling you, you can't control anything else. And then, just like melee, you make a circle for as far as your hands can reach around you, and you control that space. Because anything else that happens outside physically doesn't matter in a melee kind of hand-to-hand situation if you don't control the space. You can't worry about a threat that's across the field if there's somebody behind you. And then you work your way out to the maximum length of your sword, the maximum length of your sword with a lunge, the maximum length of a step and a lunge, And you build these rings, and you control that. That mentality will pull back into what we're doing here. Whatever's going on that's beyond your control, I hate to say it, but it's beyond our control. Now, there are a great many systems in place right now designed to build anxiety, because anxiety and fear increases watch hours. It increases the system. Something's bumping me, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. Oh, okay, it's a dive knife. Beyond that, you don't have to play that game. Keep it informed, but only engage on levels you're comfortable with. And then take your surroundings and do your best. Expect probably massive change between now and next week in this very room. Behind me, I might actually have my old wall back up. I'm not sure. But there will be major changes because I need to take control of the surroundings around me. I've had to do a lot to learn to control and adapt to my body's changes as I dealt with the physical limitations. Believe it or not, I'm actually having to adapt to my calibration in the fact that I got so used to being so weak that I'm finally beginning to build a little strength that occasionally my physical calibration is cartoonish, where, I'll go to set a book down on a table and I will accidentally frisbee yeet it across the room because I'm used to having to put so much focus and control into just doing something that mundane. Now, many of you aren't in this situation that bad, but it doesn't mean you can't learn from it. And that's a big part of what we need to understand as we're going into the future, however uncertain it may always be. Calm, collected control. I always tell you guys to do your drills and keep your eyes open and be kind to yourself and each other, because that is the solution to a huge number of conflicts. And it's one of the best bases to build off of. A lot of things that we do that we need to do are remarkably simple, guys. They're not easy, but they are simple. If you want to become a swordsman at any age, any level, the only way to do it is to get behind the sword. It's to get an SSO of some kind that you can physically handle in your hand, and just, it doesn't matter what it is. You get it. You pick a system that works well enough that you can understand what you're doing. It's okay. When you're learning math as a kid, they don't expect you to know algebra right away. You get to learn addition and subtraction first, and that's okay. Whenever we are learning anything, we are starting at the same understanding functionally as a small child. And if we embrace that and let ourselves go through the journey, it's much better. So you learn the basic drills. And you learn terminology of some sort. I'm terrible with that. I hate vocabulary. I don't think in terms of vocabulary. But you learn that. You learn about your body, what your reach is, what your natural tempo is, what it feels like to speed up, what it feels like to slow down, what your stamina is, and how to manage all these things, both temporally and spatially. And then you just do the drills. You do the drills and you spar safely and you review what you've done. This is why recording what you do is so important. But this set of steps is a framework that you can use for nearly any process that you need to improve. If you want to be a better gardener, there comes a point where you stop looking at Pinterest gardens and you have to get your hands in the dirt. If you want to learn to forge, at some point you're going to have to take metal, get it hot, whack it with a hammer, and see what happens. And focus on controlling what you do. In everything. Don't worry about the accuracy of what you're doing. First, worry about the precision. And by being open and honest and thinking critically about what you're putting out, what you're putting in, what's going on around you. That's what I mean when I say keep your eyes open. I don't want you just to look around. My friends, my colleagues, my students, in some of the cases, it is not enough to look at the world around us. It is not enough to look at the situations. It is required that we see it. And today, before I get into the chat, and I know I'm running really long. Usually I get into the chat faster than this on this program. But I had too many people asking the same kind of things of me. Today I want you to realize that you have the capacity to do more than you know. But you do not have the capacity to do so without a foundation. No one wakes up a main character, even in their own lives. You have to do something to warrant that in many ways. And for some of us, because of the scales, that might be getting out of bed, getting dressed, staying hydrated. These are the levels that sometimes we have to fight to maintain. But if you can't maintain these, anything that would be built on them doesn't matter. Understand? If you want to learn to sword fight, guys, you have to learn to stand. You have to learn to balance for a period of time. And I don't care if you have to use a stick or a walker. I don't care if you're in a wheelchair and you're just keeping your upper body upright. Whatever stage you're on, you start at the base and you build brick by brick, block by block, physically and conceptually giving your body time for the muscles and nerves and assorted systems to come online and understand what we're doing. The difference between understanding and knowledge is application. And in this case, you have to be able to apply the little steps where they are in reference to each other. Which is why, yes, there are elaborate drills, and some of them are exquisite. There are systems that I would love to be able to spend my own time trying to work more in. Arnis has some great things. Kali has some great things. Screama has some great things that translate across multiple styles that they're not the games I play. I'd like to get more into Wing Chun. I'd like to get more into a lot of things. But I look around, and as much as I'd like to do that for myself, when I can, no one is simply regularly putting out the basics. And no one I'm seeing is putting out the basics along with an open philosophy to follow it. Of peace through personal growth. Direction determined by a mix of critical thinking, intelligence, luck, and the courage to do it. So I'm very proud of you. And that's going to bring us full back again to Cindy. Because today, I wanted to take the time and just celebrate her a bit. Because she's done so much, what she has, that I am proud and I am honored to see that. And it's important enough that I've taken a large part of my program to discuss it. I don't know if she's comfortable with the praise. I apologize if it's uncomfortable, but I do feel it's necessary. And with that, I've been talking for a long time. I'm going to go see what's going on with the chat, see if there's anything needed. And then, of course, I have things we can talk about this week. I know I had something on the schedule, But unfortunately, I am. Oh, I was going to discuss books and films for inspiration and education, which we can get to if there is time, and if not, we'll bump it to next week. Although next week will also be talk. No, next week will be prep for the convention. Not the convention, the demonstration. So that works very well. All right, let's go to the chat and see where you're at. That rhyming was unintentional, but first through the door is Alec's Creation. Good evening. Good evening, Alec. And then Cindy Kep. Hi, happy Friday. I can tune in till the roomies get home, then I might have to disappear, but for now, waves. Hi, Cindy. You need books? Nick has books. Get them here. You too can learn about axes and spears and swords. Oh my, axes and spears and swords. Axes and spears and swords. Oh my. Anyway. Amazon.com/store/Mr. Nicholas Anthony Tucker /author B07P26PSF3. And check out the Historical Fencing Guild tonight at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's today's program, because Cindy is a Time Lord. I really believe Cindy Kep might just be the Lost Romana. See, I'm also having some technical difficulties because it doesn't want to show things. My Zoom wheel is actually kind of handy sometimes. And check out back issues of the Historical Fencing Guild at youtube.com/@thehistoricalfencingguild. And T for you, and you get T. That's Bladed Theses. He has a program tonight. Not tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, that I think will be very much worth viewing. Find Nick's art at deviantart.com/NickT. And help Nick teach people to be safely dangerous. Patreon.com/thehistoricalfencingguild. So you can see I am very appreciative, and she is very, very helpful. Hey, Alec and Cindy. Hey, Thesis. Good evening. Good evening. Listen, they are the children of the night. Honk, honk. Stupid Canadian geese. Anyway, Alec is greeting Thesis, and I slept most of today. I think sleep is trying to catch up to me. Same thing happened to me. I slept in, and I caught into it. Hey-o. And get gear, woodenswords.com/?click equals 1745. And you look thinner. I do have my hair pulled back, and I have actually been doing a lot of background work to try to lose weight. I'm somewhere near my benchmark of getting under 300 pounds, which I haven't been since, about 7 years, maybe longer. I had a debilitating injury and it kicked in, but thank you for that. I actually have a doctor's appointment next Friday, so I'll find out. And hiya, Johnny. Hey. And it's good to hear from you, Johnny. It's fun seeing you pop on the show when we were talking to Odin as well. And Alex says, I wish 18 would come soon. It would be cool, so cool to see you do your thing live. It's coming. Just unfortunately patient. And yo. And Cindy says, my effort to use the vane of a broken bamboo fan to repair a metal fan with a shredded vane didn't work. But yeah, I found an adhesive that'll do, but the fan won't close now. You may, if you have adhesive sticking up, you might be able to very carefully file that off with like a nail file or some sandpaper. Maybe. Shrug, I'll become an accessory for a dragon. Oh, it'll become, I bet. And collapsible sword is fabulous. I'll be able to use it when I learn sword forms soon. Oh, I am so glad. I am so glad. You truly earned far more than that, but I'm working within the parameters I can while respecting your wishes. And Alex says, "Yay, Cindy, a most well-deserved sword." Woot! And Cindy says, while I was on the way to and from Orlando, I started working on the Writer's Guide to Writing Sword Fracases. Delightful. Says, no issues from the roomies and the collapsible sword yet. I haven't tried using it for practice yet. Once I pass Dai Bo, Yang 24 is next, and then I get to a sword form. I will use it soon. Delightful. And just like I said on Facebook, I have the same collapsible sword. Just be careful, the sections bend really easily. Yes, it is not a contact sword. It is not meant for fighting in any way, shape, or form, which is why it would be perfect as an extremely lightweight tool for form use. And it was my hope that that very fragility would help keep your roomies from being concerned about it. Alex says, I'm working on controlling what I can do in my innermost circle and not focusing on all the outmost circles to the point where I have no control. Exactly. But while still keeping aware. And yes, you threw a frisbee at Rick and it went harder than anticipated. Completely. And I was as shocked by it. That was cartoony style. And Cindy says, roomies just got home. I might have to disappear. We'll see if the TV volume is a problem this time. I understand. And I'm glad you're here. I don't know if Cindy was here last time I talked about, but if you want to get familiar with the sword and do some light drilling, check cuttingsword.com. And hold on. www.cuttingsquare.com. It's a site dedicated to Myers Square, and you can customize the drills to some extent. I must have missed this. You're doing a live show. Yes. Last year, we were reached out through Joe Bachman for the new Chicago Parks Department to do just a sword demo like we used to do for the SCA, essentially, as part of opening to keep the crowd amused while the Gary Shakespeare Company sets up for their play that they do, Shakespeare in the Park. And it went surprisingly well, despite the tremendous heat. We had a lot of people come out. It was a good time. We got to demo and shtick and just do some, plastic sparring. Great time. But they asked us back again, and it is July 27th. So I said yes. It does mean missing my brother's birthday party, most likely, but that's okay. There will be workarounds. He understands. And it's that for so many, it's a good chance to get people to fall in love with what we do. It's a good chance, especially it's that you hit that target age from about, I want to say like maybe 8 to 12, who are probably there because their parents want to see Shakespeare, but they're not going to really get a lot of it or choose not to. But it's a great time. It'll be at Twin Oaks Park. I want to say it starts at 7:00. I will double check that. In New Chicago, and it's good to hear from you, Rex. Well, I'll check that out. And I did get your video, Al. I just haven't had a chance to respond. Excellent. So let's see. We've gotten through the chat. Got through my big kind of opening. Al's hard to shop for. He's done so much. I don't know how to express my raw impression with what Al accomplishes, but we are moving forward, and I am proud of that. We had a lot of setbacks, especially this year, with some things, and we're still dealing with the ramifications. We talked to the insurance adjuster guy and the inspector, and he came out and he checked for the damage from the fire and the damage from the windstorms and everything else. So we're hoping to hear from that next week. And with the weather finally getting past the monsoon season out here, which I swear we're basically growing a monsoon season where it rains every day, every other day, I can get back to defeating the backyard, which is always a challenge. So I will be looking into that. I'll have Joe send you. He was supposed to send me all the form with all the details, and we haven't got that. I'll have Joe send it out, and I'll get it to you, Al. But yeah, I haven't stopped. That's the thing. My progress and the things I'm pursuing to the outside there will always be these moments where it looks like, wow, Nick just warped ahead. And I didn't. I've just been kind of trucking along till it hits a point where the downhill glide makes it easier, And with that, we can bring progress and change that we really need. Some of it's been delayed years while I dealt with the health and other situations. But that's okay too. There is always time for progress. There is always a chance to improve. And as long as we look at things through that perspective, we can move forward and we can find things. The thesis has been drilling with that site for about a week now. I'm using my Han Jun trainer. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. Meyer is a wonderful system. It's one I can dabble in. It isn't my favorite. I mean, I believe everyone is entitled to having a favorite swordmaster and a favorite of the masters. And I will always put Gigante right up there because it's just Gigante. It's so practical in opposition to the more florid and I don't want to say excessively nuanced, but excessively specialized stuff I find with a great many of the masters. And I do like Meyer, but I'm not the biggest longsword guy. They are on the list of weapons I can make go, longsword, great swords, etc. However, it's not where functionally I live. That's why I haven't done the strong sword yet. I have to really calibrate and pull things together to get that book to be right. And like all my books, I take the time to double check and triple check everything. But the only way we can do that is by the constant effort, the constant moving forward. Now, the original plan for this episode was discuss books and films that were inspirational or educational to you. And so, being fair with that, I am going to list a few of my favorites. I'm going to just intermix it because it's how my brain works. You guys are used to that by now. But things that really influenced me, I would say of course, the black and white Zorros. The black and white Zorros were, as a kid, is it good form? Not really. Some of it is. Some of it's pretty good, light, I'd say theater saber fighting. I do hate when somebody's fighting arming swords and you can tell they're clearly using fencing techniques and not the right technique for the weapon. You see that in a lot of the Errol Flynn movies. But you look at something like Captain Blood. There's so many of them. And all the pirate movies just fell out the back of my ear. but they're phenomenal, and they were very influential. Looking at the comparatively more modern Disney's Three Musketeers, Mask of Zorro era, exquisite fencing films. Okay, Alec, you go get some more sleep, and you be careful, okay, bud? If you need me, reach out. Good night. But for books, I will have to admit that for sword fighting, the book that got me truly, truly into it was the Dark Elf trilogy, actually. Menzel Brannigan with featuring Drizzt Do'Urden. It just Bob Salvatore is an incredible fight choreographer writer. He writes phenomenal fights, and it's really easy to forget because, like the Bela Lugosi Dracula, aspects of Drizzt have been so copied and emulated for a period so much that became an archetype that it's easy to lose sight of how monumental the character was and is to this day, how game-changing the setting was, and how intrinsic the fight scenes were. And it hit at a time where I was reading about Menzo Brannigan and surviving the perils of the Underdark at a time where I was going to a school that had, frankly, felt like nothing more than dark, winding hallways and dimly lit corridors full of people who often wanted to do me harm. It was the it hit perfect. Now, Rex says Drizzt is overrated, and now certainly I can see that. I'll be honest. I walked away from the later books, and I will be further honest if you pay attention. As much as Drizzt brought me in, but in that series, farther on, he encounters an assassin by the name of Artemis Intiri, who fights saber and dagger. This should be a hint, friends. He fights sword and dagger. Artemis, ooh, he made sense because I wasn't cool like Drizzt. I wasn't a savant. I had to work for what I had, and I had to work constantly for everything I did, for everything I do. The level of a villain who is truly villainous and the ruthlessness of Artemis Intiri, along with the mentality that he had of practically approaching fight scenarios from I am going to win. And if I know I'm going to have a fight, I am going to use the setting to my every advantage. That resounded, shockingly practical. And you have to also remember, you have to step back to understand this was a time where almost every sword fighter was still depicted as a mix between Conan and He-Man. I mean, we're talking the vast majority of of swordsmen were the Hercules great sword wielding, 68-inch chest, 30-inch waist, gigantic biceps, oily for reasons no one really understood, trying to be Arnold. And to be honest, the 6-foot-tall looming powerhouses were the guys who kicked my butt even then. So it was a thing. So Drizzt was a dramatic turn from that. There were several other characters in books that influenced me at that period. The title character from Lord Valentine's Castle influenced me a lot. You need to read that. Oh, God. I can't remember the author's name. It'll come to me. But Catterley actually influenced me a lot, being in the, okay, how do I approach this when I genuinely don't want to kill anybody? It's just, there was a lot of these little things. Oh, God, I cannot remember the name. There was a name of a fencer who was he was isekai'd before isekai was a thing, and his family came from that other realm, and they were training him to sword fight. So they'd always have him fencing in the round at home with very different rules than the rules that would be found in the strip fencing. But those were the big fiction. And then once you get reading, when you start to read the works of Alexander Dumas and Baroness Orkney, yes, I am going to cite The Scarlet Pimpernel. If Drizzt is dramatically overrated, The Scarlet Pimpernel is equally and opposite underrated. Brilliant. And a wonderful inspirational character. And then, you had, at that time, I was blessed to have an arc of fun characters. And you had silly, fun characters like Jack of all trades. Jack Styles, as played by the incomparable Bruce Campbell. Tongue-in-cheek, but fun, and occasionally some rather good fight sequences that you would not expect to find. Anything with Basil Rathbone in it, if he was sword fighting, it was going to be good. And it was always funny to me after years of watching that to see, to look back and realize that even watching it, you could tell he was so good he was making Errol Flynn look better. That takes skill. Modern people who spring to mind, Ray Park. I mean, if you're going to talk influential people, Ray Park's Darth Maul was brilliantly different than the usual, what you expect from the quasi-samurai styles bouts. And Criterion Collection. Akira Kurosawa. The Kurosawa samurai movies. If you want to know what made Star Wars fights better, go watch The Seven Samurai. Go watch anything by Akira Kurosawa. My speech impediment is really bad today. I apologize. But these really, really moved me. As did simply playing Dungeons and Dragons, because I wanted to do what the characters did. So finding niche characters that were a little smaller, a little faster, a little more. They had to be cunning because they couldn't simply rely on brute strength to solve problems. Always appealed to me. In part because of the genetic background. I mean, I'm 5'7", but I gained 2 inches at the start of college. So I graduated high school at 5'4", 5'5" and 127 pounds. In college, I got 2 inches and then it stopped. And I bulked up significantly because I split wood, and then I did a lot of I started doing katana work at home with some books that I realized now were probably Aikido based, and staff work and axe work, obviously. Then I fell into the SCA stuff, and I grew a tremendous, well, actually, I danced around and I learned just enough saber to pick up some bad habits from a friend in college, and then I picked up SCA rapier, and I was in love, and I still am in a very, very real sense. It's one of the few things I truly mourn. And yes, Hidden Fortress, Washerman, Throne of Blood, Yojimbo, yes. There's so many. That's why I just said any of them. Just look up director Akira Kurosawa. Yeah. And lots of old kung fu movies, especially those before the era of wire fu. If you can find they're clunkier, but I would watch the only thing they could do, because to make it showy, they would add the noises, but they'd also zoom in on the grips. Thank you, Thesis. But you watch those, and there's so much depth, and they're also just phenomenal films. But I will warn you, once you watch those movies, you will be seeing them for the rest of your life mimicked in other things. It's just the nature of them. And there were a lot of anime that influenced me, because of course there were. Some practical, some silly, some absolutely farcical, but you watch it and you go, what works, what doesn't? And because I have a hypercritical mind, that's where I lived. When we get into the books, a lot of it was based on what I could get my hands on for a time. But Maestro Ramirez out of Palpable Hit Productions, his series on Destreza, they're expensive videos. They're like, the DVDs were like $70 a piece back then. They've gone up in price. And I have many of them stowed away somewhere. I had a couple get swiped. Not all my students turned out to be as scrupulous as I would have liked, but that's okay. I also have to put out a whole bunch of the Mercedes Lackey books. The Harold de Valdemar series, especially anything involving, one of my favorite heroes of all time, Albrecht of Kars. If you don't know who Albrecht of Kars is, in many ways you kind of do. Those who have been present for my life, the in-person practical self-defense lecture that I usually give, and things like that. Yeah, Albrecht of Kars, Harold Albrecht, absolutely one of my favorite characters of all time. And it's funny because Albrecht was actually based on an actual person. Not many people know this. In the SCA, he's still in the SCA, and his handle is Duke Sir Master Moonwolf Starkonson, Baron of Whitewaters, and a bunch of other, not Whitewaters, Rivenstar. Whitewaters, oh dear God, I'm sorry. Baron of Rivenstar, also known as Michael Longcore. I have had the privilege of not only getting to, associate lightly with that man, but sparring and going against him in tourney. I came second to him. And to my pride, only by the narrowest of margins. And I think part of it, in all honesty, was I was starstruck. But I still got a kill on him. So I count that as one of my major accomplishments in my fencing career. which many people wouldn't think of, but it's one of those you have to be there and you have to know, especially since that was literally the day I was released from recovery from my abdominal surgery, from my double hernia surgery that it was, to fight. And I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from watching him. I learned a lot from Professor Peter. Oh, the raid. Oh, okay. The raid. Yes. The pencilot in the raid. It's almost all one shot. It is exquisite. I absolutely love the visceral realism of that fighting style. Brilliant. And see, that's what I love. I've watched so much I forget. But if you're looking for fencing, I say it a lot, read Gigante. Nicola Gigante's On the Rapier or the Sleigh. There's a volume 2 I haven't got my hands on. Reading Meyer is good, especially if you're doing longsword. Fiore is interesting. Fiore is a good read. If you are tall and skinny, so if you're a tall, slender person, definitely a man. You want to look at Agrippa is a good place to start. He's one of the earlier masters, so you can see the evolution. Oh, I wish I could remember the German man's name. There's a German style that's just beautiful. If you are looking for Chinese martial arts, there are a lot of people out there, but I'm going to have to cite Dr. Zhuang Wing Ming, I believe. My dyslexia loves to get a hold of his name, but his introduction to the sword DVD is not terribly expensive. My old library used to have it thanks to my meddling. Fundamental. If you want to get into Jin right now, I recommend that video. He has videos on basically all the Chinese martial arts, the sword, the weapon styles. If it's there, he probably has a video on it. I really recommend his stuff, as in the interactive. I'm terrible with names. The guy who runs Palpable Hit, I can see him in my mind. He played, if it was a sword fighting or knife fighting villain, he was in it in the 80s and 90s. Oh, it's going to kill me because he did Palpable Hit and he did the Saber videos for the Saber video series for Cold Steel. And his name is just nebulous. It's just being just outside of my reach. Give me just a second. Hit Productions. I hope he's still in business. Dumas? Doers go. DeLongis. Anthony DeLongis. I had to get there. But if you go to the Martinez Academy of Arms or DeLongis.com, you will find wonderful DVDs. And I really, truly, if you want to study stage fighting, if you want to study Spanish, Italian, and French smallsword, they've added a few. Oh, yeah, because he's got the Jack Dagger method. And, of course, DeLongis teaches bullwhip. So let me get this link here. I'm going to throw it in the chat. I can't recommend this. Littenhauer might be one of them, yes. There are several, but Littenhauer is probably who I'm thinking of. But actually, I'm looking a later period saber fighter. Anyway, it'll come to me when I am digging through. And Cindy Kemp has some amazing books. But I was hoping she'd promote herself as well. And if not, we'll get to it next week because, like I said, some of the video got taken up with dealing with some necessary things, which I feel with both commending Cindy and providing calm to some of the people who've reached out to me. So what I'm going to do now is I think I'm going to actually call it right now because I've gone an hour and a half, hour 5. I had an extra hour of broadcast today, and some other things have come up that I'm a little tired from. I've been building myself up, so I've been pushing myself. So I'm going to say, guys, thank you for a lovely, lovely program. I hope this was educational and informative. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And you know the deal. Do your drills. Keep your guard up. Be kind to yourself and each other. And as always, friends, thank you for supporting your local swordmaster. I will see you next week for another episode of the Historical Fencing Guild's live stream. And, well, Dr. Yang, a few of his books, and he's the one who taught me the Jin drop. Then, yes, I have seen it. It's just the katana, drawing and sheathing the katana was something I was actually pursuing Iaido for a while. And muscle memory is there for a reason. But, folks, I will see you all very soon. Toodles.